Welcome back, guys, to another episode of The Republic We Keep.
Today we're here with Joe Maloney. He is a Hillsborough, New Jersey resident for 37 years. He knows a lot about local government, and we have some questions for him today. Thank you for joining us today. So I guess let's start by saying that this episode is really aimed at helping Gen Z and young adults understand why local government matters, how it shapes everyday life in communities like Hillsborough. And I feel like many young people feel disconnected from politics or assume that change only happens at a national level. So our goal for this episode is to inspire participation in local politics and demystify local government.
With that being said, can you tell us a little bit about your role in local government and why you first got involved?
I do not really have a formal role. First of all, thank you for having me this evening. I really do not have a formal role in local government. I basically got involved, and I still am a concerned citizen, concerned mostly about the issues that are happening in our local community. I started at a very young age. My mother actually inspired me because of her activity in securing an elementary school in my hometown when I was young. So the DNA just kept on going. I worked in federal government for 32 years and was prohibited from participating in politics. So I had a pent-up desire to get back into the local scene. And the biggest impact that you can make as a citizen is at the local level. Although politics, due to the media, due to a number of other factors, seems to be dominated at the national level.
So I definitely want to get into that, why it evolved to focus more on national government. Can you tell us a little about what exactly local government does, especially in Hillsborough, on a day-to-day basis?
Okay. We're going to get real wonky here. The function of local government is to provide goods and services to its citizens, or goodies such as resolutions and awards, and services to its local citizens, and also to manage local land in terms of planning and zoning. And that is done over a revenue base, which can be defined as most commonly taxes, but there are other revenue bases such as fees for recreation would go into the general fund, as well as grants from the federal government, the state government, and 501(c)(3)s that have a particular interest, such as the environment or education, etc. So, all that being said, local government actually is more available for citizen participation than the state government and even the federal government.
Yeah, so I think many people, especially Gen Z, think about politics as something that happens in Washington. Why do you think that that's a misconception? And why do you think people feel discouraged from being involved in local politics?
Well, there are a lot of things going on in Washington, as there are a lot of things that are going on in Trenton. However, if you were to look at your day-to-day life, most people get up in the morning. If you're employed, you would get in your car and go to work, and you carry on your daily chores, such as I have to go grocery shopping and get the kids off to school. All these things that I just mentioned are absolutely controlled at the local level. In other words, the roads that you drive on, the street that you live on would be maintained by the local government. That store that you go shopping at had to be zoned and planned for and approved by your local government. You have a pothole in your street, the local government fixes.
So it's just everywhere in everyday life.
And yet it's taken for granted. And I think that's where the disconnect comes. The disconnect comes until there's an event that is not welcome in my backyard, or until there is citizen involvement.
So was it always like that? I know growing up, it might have been different for you being involved in local politics.
Certainly was. You have to remember that the United States of America, by and large, was an agrarian country. And by that I mean it was a rural life. And that changed due to technology and the fact that we became an industrial powerhouse during the 20th century. And the absolute unbelievable, still, the American dream is held up worldwide. So our country is dynamic. We are changing, and we went from an agrarian society to an urban society. And in between that is the agrarian society that became like suburbs, bedroom communities, to the urban areas where the job growth was. So for example, the town that I grew up in, when I was growing up, there were 3,000 people. Basically, a butcher shop, a bakery, not really a main street, just a street to a larger city, and people generally, I would say, knew more people. Actually, the technology was, if you had a telephone, you basically had a telephone number that was 6 digits. It's hard to it's really hard really to look back and see how fast and how far we have gotten. There was no microwaves, no computers, etc. So it was a much different type of world, and it's no different really. The only difference is now with the technology, with computers and the ability to do podcasts such as these, the information should be flowing. Should be absolutely. It's so much easier to get, and it's so much easier to do the research. For example, when I first got started in this, I would have to go to a library and look up things, and then find out who to get in touch with if there was a document to look at that had that information. All of that has changed, and it's all for the better. You cannot fight technology. In fact, you have to use technology in order to advance our society.
Totally with you on that. So why do you think technology was the main reason that people became less engaged at the local level, and then how do we rejuvenate that engagement? Perhaps using technology?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. I mean, that is the secret sauce. How do you get people involved at a local level? My experience, and I'm speaking from my experience, is people only get involved if there's an issue that is occurring right in their backyard. For example, tonight there's a planning board meeting. We are listening to 6 objectors tonight to a 9 football field sized warehouse.
It's still this?
Yes. So the warehouse issue is throughout the state of New Jersey, and likewise the affordable housing issues throughout the state of New Jersey are first and foremost, and we're grappling with that as a society. Obviously, the economics tell you that we need warehouses somewhere. And New Jersey is ideally located between 2 metropolitan areas. So it would be like an idea, just looking at it from a high level, New Jersey would be a great place to have a warehouse. Unfortunately, it would be like encroaching on the suburban environment in our case. Yeah. Likewise, there is a nationwide shortage of housing throughout our country and throughout the world, actually. And there is a need for affordable housing because your generation is waiting for my generation basically to die. There's just not enough houses, and the housing stock is wrong. And here you go. I'll state my age. I mean, when I was growing up, we had Levittown, New York, Levittown, Pennsylvania, which were basically 1,500-foot ranch houses, cape houses in tight-knit villages, tight-knit communities that after World War II, with all of our soldiers coming home and the great immigration coming, we just threw up these houses like unbelievably quickly because of the need. And then you get suburban sprawl, and then there's issues about, well, we absolutely have a need, but not here. Put it somewhere else. Put it where it makes sense.
Yeah.
And we still have that debate as to how that should be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was actually listening to a podcast earlier today, and they were talking about how Trump in the most recent 2024 presidential election, he actually did a great job reaching out to like male young adults, like Gen Z males, and using media to his advantage, whereas in Kamala didn't have enough time to rewrite the story and didn't really have a hang of social media like Trump did, as he was very effective in reaching out to that like group of people and that target audience. I mean, you think about our generation and we're online, so I mean, like, reaching out to a grandparent might be easier like on newspaper or even Facebook, whereas into us it's on TikTok. So
right. And here's another thing I would just like to say. People are caught in their silos. In other words, especially when it comes to communication, they'll get up, they'll turn on the TV to their favorite channel, and that's the news for the day. That would be like my generation. Your generation gets most of its information from Facebook, from other social media sites, etc. And in order to, we're not really talking about elections, but in order to win an election, the key is to get your message out. And I will say that President Trump did a much better job at identifying, number one, purple states. In other words, states that were in play, and he absolutely crushed it communicating to those states. Mm-hmm. There's no question about it, and lo and behold, whether you agreed with his message or you disagreed with his message, he was there, he showed up, he communicated directly to those people.
Yeah.
And I think another part of it was going on long-form content, like podcasts, for example, gave an opportunity for people engaged in politics to really get to know the person, whereas Kamala didn't really
She
get a
did.
chance.
She actually went on Call Her Daddy.
Yeah, I know, but not nearly as much as Trump did. So you really got a chance to hear what his message was.
I also think it's like extremely important to target our generation because it's not like you're going to wake up tomorrow and be a Republican. And I think that's like a very big factor. I think that it's also like up to the candidates and their campaigns to like make the effort to reach out to our generation.
Although that is true at the local level, in terms of election, you have to show where you're different, what you're bringing to the table. Yeah. You have to identify where your opponent is perceived to be weak, and you have to say, okay, this is my strategy and this is how I'm going to communicate it. But back to local politics. Let's talk about the issues here. I mean, I understand on a national level, it's widely communicated. On the local level, local government works best absent of politics, focused on issues. And by that, that's a quote. I forget who said it, but I will say that by and large, issues are debated and hotly debated at the local level. And there's committees just like you see in Congress. However, when it comes time to vote, 85-90% of the time, regardless of whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, an anarchist, a communist, an ultra-conservative, they'll focus on the meat of the ordinance that is going to be passed, and 85 to 90% of the time it's unanimous because it's worked out locally. And I believe the dynamic why that happens is because you're in a community and you're going to see people that you're going to see the politicians that are in our community. They are going to see fellow politicians at events out in the communities. So there's much more personal contact outside of the political realm than there is, let's say, even on the state level and also on the national level. There is no way that President Trump is partying with Bernie Sanders this weekend. However, if at the at the 4th of July fireworks special, all of our local candidates, our elected officials, and quite a few people from our municipal government were there and talking to people, engaging with the public. And that's because it's the community aspect of local government still exists. And the way to get people involved in that is Nike. Just get out and do it. Just get out and do it. Gather your facts and communicate that with a group of either like-minded or opposite-minded people. And the diversity of opinion does not just happen at the national level. You can have a different perspective. We all grew up differently with different value system. You can have a different perspective. I've been at this for over 60 years, and I will tell you that I'm still learning. And the politics, by and large, is not it's about issues, but it's more about personal relationships. It's more about your ability to connect with people, not only the community, but also the people that you're working with. And that includes the other side of the aisle.
Working with you and the HDO, I got to learn a lot about that the Hillsborough Democrats aren't what you think of Democrats when you think about national politics. And I learned that at the local level, it's actually a lot more partisan than black and white. So can you talk a little bit about that, how it's not the same? They're very different.
In what respect?
Like regarding like Republicans versus Democrats, it's more everyone's working together because everyone ultimately wants to just better the town. Correct,
and there you go. My observations are you can absolutely have a strong opinion about a particular issue or a particular subject. However, at the local level, although those those discussions could devolve into arguments and could get heated, very rarely does that happen. Because to get involved in local politics, you're not doing it for the money. There is no money in it. They get a scant stipend to do it. People get involved in local politics for a number of reasons. Number one, in order to get involved in politics, you have to have an ego. You have to be able to go out there and address people and talk to people, and you have to think you walk on water, or else you just you will not survive the political environment. All that being said, they actually have a belief system. It's not a perception, a belief system that this is the town I live in, and I believe that this is the best way that the town should go forward. So I hate to sound Pollyanna, but there is altruism throughout our local politics. We may have differences of opinions. There may be many different ways to get to go if it was like a Monopoly game. But the reason people get involved is because they care. They care. And to the extent that they care, you can see that in the amount of effort that they put forth in terms of outreach to the community, how the community has grown, etc. You have communities here in New Jersey, not Hillsborough, that are stuck in time. that are stuck at the change of the 20th century. You have other communities that where a major university is that it's like, okay, we don't like this building anymore. Let's just knock it down, and we got a brand new cancer center. Let's put our medical school right in the middle of town. We got a train station, and it's constantly changing. It's economically driven. A lot of political decisions are made as to the future, and there are various interest groups that are constantly pressuring the government to do something.
So, I have a few questions. One, can you give an example of like a current Hillsborough,
dispute?
Between what the Republicans versus like the Democrats have a difference in opinion? Like, for example, the warehouses. What are the Democrats, like, how are they looking at that, and how are the Republicans?
Well, I don't really see the warehouse issue as like a Democrat or Republican type issue. I see it more as like, we have zoning and planning that was in place for many years here in Hillsborough, and yet the town has grown, has changed. And for example, the warehouses that are being proposed, they are zoned to be warehouses there. They are zoned to be there. From what I gather, neither, quote, side, we're going through a litigious process. So for me to really comment on it, but from what I perceive is happening, the public has risen. The neighbors do not want the warehouses there. And politically and legally, those warehouses and the landowner, the property owner, has rights. And that goes back to colonial times. Yeah. That's the foundation of land management in municipalities. So what we have here is it was zoned. We're going through a process. The citizenship that particularly that lives right there where it's at, they want nothing to do with it. Increase traffic. They have a whole litany of things that why it shouldn't be there. It's the process, and ultimately, both the Democrats and the Republicans will have to vote on that once it goes through the planning committee, and it'll come to the township committee to approve or to deny the application.
So I guess that's a great example to show how parties aren't very relevant in certain issues, mostly in the local government. And the warehouse is an example that it's more of like what the citizens want versus what was already planned by the government.
Well, in that particular case, yes. It is that particular case, I would say yes. However, if you are a major developer and you have a plan that fits the zoning, you have the resources, economic resources and backing to put that plan forward.
Yeah.
Easy street, it's done regardless of whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. It will pass because of the legal aspect of government. Remember, even on our federal level, and it goes down to the state and local level, there are three legs to this stool here. There is the executive branch, there is the legislative branch, and there's the judicial branch. Here in New Jersey, the judicial branch is very active, and we have a very strong governor. Our state constitution gives the governor latitude to basically pocket veto, to strike veto certain aspects of a bill, whereas you can't do that on the federal level. So there are partisan issues. There's no question about it, but they're not as, what's the word I want? They're not as it's perceived. Again, and I blame the media for that, because what should happen is it should be reported how each committee person voted on a particular issue, and both sides be given.
Yeah, like I guess the SCOTUS.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely.
I mean, but like, if you as a citizen feel this way, I mean, could you potentially go up to the township committee and tell them that that's like what people want? And do you think that they would like take that into consideration?
Absolutely. I will tell you that once the public gets involved, that they absolutely listen. In fact, Tuesday was the Township and Municipal Building. I spoke at it concerning a bond issue that, quite honestly, I knew was going to pass. I agree with most of the things that were in the bond issue, but I also pointed out to the fact that that bond issue, in my opinion, was somewhat late because it was suggested back in 1996 that the things that were proposed within that bond issue should have been done then. Mm-hmm. So the longer you wait on things, the more costly they are. And plus, with bond issues, you're going to take on debt. The idea is with a bond issue that you spread it out over a number of years. So if you're a current resident, you have years and years and years to pay it off. If you're an older resident, you say, okay, let's go forward. But at least I'm not going to be paying off into this last bond issue is for 17 years. Yeah. 17 years.
Can you talk about what the purpose of it was?
Sure. Well, it was $17 million, of which we're bonding $16 million. The majority of it was basically to give Public Works a Public Works building that actually works. Okay. It does not leak. There are several things wrong with our Public Works building, and it's long overdue. That was 11 point some odd million, so that was a big chunk of it. The police department, up until about 5 years ago, we had 54 officers. We were stuck on that. The thing was, 55 square mile township, 54 officers, a little less than one per square mile. Well, we got authorization, and of course, because of our tax base, we got authorization to hire. And first it was 61, and next thing you know, it grew to 65. Now they got authorization to go to 75 officers. If you've ever driven behind a municipal building, you cannot find a place to park. There are police cars all over the place. They actually have done the right thing and added diversity to the police force. We now have police officers that are females with no female locker room. So, I believe, I don't know the exact figure, but there was a big chunk of money that basically said, okay, the rooms that we're going to, the supply rooms, we're moving all that out. We're gonna start shredding stuff that we no longer do. We're gonna clean up the municipal building, basically. And we're gonna give the police the space that they need. To which I basically said, they actually need their own building, and you can take this courtroom and put it in the building, just like it was suggested in 1996. The reaction was, I don't know. Well, it didn't really go over that well, but and there were other things within that. $300,000 for we're going to fix the library roof because that's leaking. So there were a lot of things that were like daily upkeep, things that like if you were a homeowner, it's like, okay, my roof is 9 years old, it's time to change it. We also bond for roads, so we're going to pave roads, and that was a separate bonding issue, but you get the idea. This is basically like cleanup. We bond for OEM, Office of Emergency Management. We have a nice vehicle that right now, but it's an SUV. Now they bonded for a bus, $600,000. So God forbid if there's a flood or whatever, we have a plan. We're all supposed to meet. Well, it used to be at Mountain View Plaza, and they have a bus there for triage. so to speak. Or if you lose, your home due to a flood or whatever, you would go to a prescribed place. The bus would be there. Your resources would gather there. And, of course, it's radio equipped, and it's got all the bells and whistles.
How did the state government play into this at all?
State government, in this particular bonding issue, de minimis. This is all local, based on local tax base. The state does provide financial aid to our school system.
Okay, so with that being said about partisanship in local government, so for example, Jill Gomez, Township Committee candidate, Democratic nominee, what issue is she running on? Because if you're talking that, or you're saying that like Republicans versus Democrats don't really, they agree with a lot of things and it's not like at the national level, how does somebody get elected pretty much if it's like up in the air if it's going to be a Republican or a new Democrat coming into Township Committee board?
Regardless of political party, the challenging candidate has to differentiate him or herself from the status quo. In New Jersey, and as well throughout the United States, the current issue and only issue in my mind is affordability. And affordability strikes everyone from 17 years old that's going to enter into college or graduate high school right up until senior citizens. So the way to actually to get elected in this cycle is to talk about affordability and how you are different than the status quo. If you are a challenger, if you are an incumbent, you would stress how much you have done in terms of making your constituents better able to afford the financial crisis that is perceived to be happening here in the United States.
I think the New York mayoral campaign that just recently took place with the Democratic candidate showcases that perfectly, your point. I mean, one of his main points was running on that, solving the economic issue.
Yes. Excellent campaigner. Like all candidates, I don't necessarily agree with everything that any single candidate, regardless of party, proposes. But I will say this about that candidate. He was out in the street. He was meeting people. Yeah. He was engaging people. His communication was direct to the voters. What I will also say is his opponent ran a media campaign. And we recently saw similar things in our gubernatorial primary on the Democratic side. There was a lot of money spent by candidates that finished very, very poorly. And there's many reasons why Mikey Sherrill won the nomination on the Democratic side. However, the key reason for that is her message was clean. She had a group that she talked to, and when she went out and spoke at events and groups of people, her answers were concise and to the point. So communication in any campaign, the three legs to the stool, it's communication, your policies, how they are going to work, and unfortunately, you need the money to get out the communication, and you need money is a bloodline to any campaign. Mm-hmm. You can run a grassroots campaign. We've been running a grassroots campaign here in Hillsborough on the Democratic side forever. However, in order to win, you need a dynamic. You need a candidate that is willing to do what no other candidate will do. In other words, if it's time to walk and talk, show up at events, to get out there and to get your message out, to register new voters, if that is necessary for you to win, you absolutely have to take those steps.
Yeah, I agree. So I guess just moving on to our closing questions. What have you learned from working with residents, boards, and officials?
Wow. Very deep question. What have I learned? People are people. When it comes down to a particular issue, I've learned that rather than become emotional about the issue, you take the emotions out. You try to isolate those emotions. You need the facts. Unquestionably, you need the facts. There's a lot of misperception, a lot of misinformation out there. You need the facts that surround the particular issue. And it is not one size fits all. There can be several solutions to a single issue. And honestly, the best solutions aren't necessarily your solutions. They're not necessarily anyone's solutions. Usually, they're a product of a compromise. That being said, when you involve partisan politics, it becomes an us versus them. We know what we're doing. We totally disagree with what's going on. I mean, you can hear those statements all the time. The real issue here is you're going nowhere unless you have solutions to a problem. And in order to get those solutions, again, you talk to as many people, you get as many facts as you possibly can, and then what you do is you listen. And then you try to come up with possible solutions. You listen again, and then you suggest the best solution in your mind that could solve the problem. So if there's anything that I've learned is everyone has a different perception of what is actually going on or what the issue is. And if you come to a consensus that the main issue is X, you have to look at the factors that compose X in order to solve it.
All right, and in your opinion, what would a healthier relationship between citizens and the local government look like, specifically in Hillsborough?
The first thing is we get every citizen registered to vote that's eligible to vote. Voter participation is key. Second thing is I don't know if there should be widespread participation, but there certainly should be neighborhood participation.
What do you mean?
Yeah. I mean that, like, if your neighborhood certainly has like an issue, you should have a spokesperson for your neighborhood. You should have petitions from 20 of your neighbors, etc., and you should present them. And you will get, at the local level, you have the opportunity to do that face to face every other Tuesday. Yeah. And you can speak to a wide audience. There are a few of us that do watch the videos, and you are speaking directly to 5 people and a township administrator that runs our government. You're speaking directly to them about an issue that they're concerned. And if they do not react to it, you bring it up again, and then you bring it up again, and then you bring your 20 neighbors in, and then you get all 20 of them to bring it up again. And eventually you will move the stone of Sisyphus up that hill.
Is the process similar in local government, like between across the United States, in terms of the committee and
like a township committee?
The township committee.
Okay, here we go. New Jersey is unique. There are 5 recognized forms of government. We have city government, we have town government, we have township government, we have boroughs, and we also have villages. Now, within Manville actually is a city, whereas Morristown is a town, and New Brunswick is a city, and it's just it's called the Faulkner Act. It's homework assignment for everyone that cares.
Oh, that's cool. I'm actually going to write that down.
And basically, there are hybrids of each of those 5. And the hybrids have to be approved by the assembly, sent over to the Senate, and signed by the governor. So you can have a hybrid of those types of government. So township, back in 1946, we had a constitutional convention at Rutgers University in New Brunswick, and down on College Avenue, and they were in the old gym there, and they basically came up with, like, this is what we're going to do. The history is fascinating. Boroughs came about in 1893 because we had some sections of townships and or cities that did not want to drink. They did not. They wanted their own religion. So the assembly and the legislature and the governor back in 1893 decided, like, so be it. So most of your boroughs, if you ever go to a borough, welcome to the borough of Milltown, New Jersey, you'll see founded 1893, founded 1894, founded 1895. It got so overwhelming that they actually changed the rules because everyone wanted their own little municipality. In fact, there's a town in South Jersey called Tavistock. There are 9 residents. It was founded as a golf course. Millionaires basically just said, we got our own town. And they contract out all the services, etc. And then, of course, we have large cities. So is it similar? The answer is, in a lot of ways, it is. You can actually go to a large city council meeting, and they do permit citizens to speak at those,
Trenton?
like Trenton, like Newark, New Jersey, to speak at those city council meetings.
Yeah.
And then for the smaller ones, such as villages, and also like some boroughs, you just knock on someone's door. I mean, you just literally just knock on their door, regardless of the meeting. So, it's amazing. Somerset County, I think, has 22 municipalities. Bergen County, which is much smaller, due to the way we were set up constitutionally, they have 70 municipalities. I remember when I used to work for a living, I was driving in a truck with the truck driver. We were stopped at a 5-way stop sign. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Yes, it's where 5 roads meet up in Bergen County. We stopped right in the middle, and he says, well, Joe, you're now in 6 different towns. And I'm there like, what? And he says, yes, they're in 6 different towns because they all had their own post office. I used to work for the post office. They all had their own post office, and it was like, whoa, this is way different than what I ever knew.
Okay, so to close, what advice would you give to young people who want to get involved in local politics but don't know where to start? And also, I guess, why is attending township meetings, volunteering, or joining local boards so impactful?
Okay, let's break down this question. Why is it important? Get a sense of community. You can have an impact as to how your community actually runs, and also to bring out the community spirit and to make the town that you live in a better place to live in. Okay, how do young people get involved? Nike, just get out and do it. Absolutely. If you have a passion, and it doesn't necessarily have to be government, if you have a passion such as art,
STEM camps and such,
robotics, you have I initially started to go to historic commission meetings because there's a cemetery that I want to preserve up in the hills that I've been working on for the past 6 years now.
Really cool.
So it's where your passion leads you. If you're a great artist, you can have your art distributed at the library. If you're into photography, the same thing goes. So whatever your passion is, that's where a good place to start.
There's a spot for it in local
government.
If
you start to get involved, what you'll find is that different committees are in charge of different activities.
Right.
So then you get involved with the recreation department or the historic commission or the environmental commission. You can get involved with any, or if health services, or if you're interested in providing food for those in need, you get involved with humans and health services. So the idea is through civil engagement, there are many different avenues, and I would suggest that if you have a passion about your town, if you have a passion to help people, or if you just want to get more active and meet people, rather than laying on your couch, now I'm talking about personal experience, laying on your couch, watching TV, cursing at the TV over national politics and state politics and just getting very upset over things, what you actually can control is things that are happening right here in your local community. You can actually have input, dialogue, discussion. You can have a better understanding of what's going on. And lo and behold, you have people that don't necessarily know you, that you don't know, will come up to you and say, hey, your name is Joe. I saw you on TV, blah, 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 blah. What do you think about this, and this? And they view you as an expert when, in fact, I'm just a regular citizen that has an interest in it.
Well, I got to meet a lot of people with my involvement with the HDO, and the other day, I think you were driving behind me, and I was kind of waving, but then I was like, wait, he's behind me, so he can't see me. But I was waving for a while, and I was like, I'm being stupid right now. Anyway, what I mean to say is that I actually know a lot of people in Hillsborough now, and before my family's never been very neighborly, so I've never been that type to know people other than my age range or the people that I went to high school with.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really, you get to meet people, and there's so many, everyone. You meet lawyers, you meet from all different backgrounds.
Assemblymen, senators. I will tell you that when I first got involved in party politics, I would just go to meetings, and lo and behold, I meet the governor. When I used to work for a living, that was kind of normal. We would always interface with our political counterparts, but you get to converse with your assemblyman, your senator. What I will say is this, and this is just a judgment, a value judgment statement through my observations. Take it for what it is. It's just my opinion. Your generation, Gen Z, you're brilliant. You care. You're passionate. You're much more family orientated than my generation. My generation, I call the lost generation because my father's generation saved the world by going to World War II.
That's what a lot of people.
My generation, we discoed and did drugs. But there were. Look, I'm just giving an overview, etc. What I would suggest, your generation, I see nothing but upside. Nothing. There's just we're on the verge of a technological change that is going to dynamically change everything that we do. What I would suggest, and again, this is a value judgment, get out of your shells, get off your cell phones. I'm serious. You say, don't get me wrong, but tether it and get out and talk. Physically talk to people. Physically talk to your representatives, to your elected politicians, etc. And don't be afraid of them. They are people too. And quite honestly, the other side of it is, politicians always tell me, I met a very interesting young man the other day who is an engineering student at Rutgers University, and we had a great discussion about XYZ. Politicians thrive on the interaction that they have with their constituent. It's like heroin to a heroin addict. They absolutely love it. They love the interaction. To them, it's reaffirming. To them, it's outreach. To them, it's like, wow, this person really cares.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that your generation, you've got all the tools. There is no question that the information is readily available. Do not be afraid to talk to people, to confront people, to actually voice your opinion. The worst that they're going to say is like, hey, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Or, no, I totally disagree. Or, did you consider this? You may learn something on the way. And at least that way you can get your positions known, the issues off your chest, and then you can better form opinions about actually who actually is the person to get things done for you. So that would be my suggestion to you Gen Zers.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
And bear with us because we are starting to do videos and we don't really know how to do it properly yet. So bear with us as we figure everything out. But thank you so much for watching.
Thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you for coming.
and joining us.
It was a pleasure. I'll do it again. And believe me, we just scratched the surface. Can talk about a number of things within local government, within government, everything from funding to actually the mechanization of how things actually get done.
Yeah.
How the sausage is actually made.
Yeah,
So-
well, thank you for listening. Joe Maloney is a celebrity here in Hillsborough.
I'm not a celebrity.
Yes, you are. All right, thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, and check out our new website that we just launched.
The republicwekeep.com.